Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you are all having a wonderful week so far and that you are staying safe wherever you are. We are very happy to have you with us today for this exciting webinar presenting a new member of our Open SDK family, just been released, the TestProject C# Open SDK. So for this live hands-on webinar, we have with us today Bas Dijkstra. Bas is a test automation expert and main contributor of the TestProject Python and C# Open SDK. He teaches companies around the world how to improve their testing efforts through test automation. We also have with us today Matthias Rapp. He's a VP Cloud Partnerships and SpecFlow General Manager, shaping BDD for the .NET world. So we are very happy to have both of you with us today. So before we get started, let's just quickly review the agenda for the session today. Matthias will spotlight upcoming SpecFlow features and all its capabilities and power. Then we'll go on to a live demo part with Bas, uncovering our new Selenium C# Open SDK and discuss all of the powerful features of the Open SDK. And we'll learn how to create living documentation from your SpecFlow tests directly into the TestProject Cloud. Also, of course, as usual, have time for a live Q&A. Keep sharing your questions specifically in the dedicated Q&A section, not in the chat. That way we can make sure we follow all of the questions and answer them at the end of the session. And of course, by the end of the event, you will all receive to your email a recording of the webinar, the presentation slides, and those who will attend the entire session will also receive a cool certificate of attendance. So again, please share your questions in the dedicated Q&A section. And without further ado, Matthias, the stage is yours.
All right, thank you, Karen, and happy to be here. Hi to everyone. So yeah, let me dive a little bit into what we've been up to from the SpecFlow team. Obviously, we're super excited about the live demo part that Bas is going to do in a bit. But I want to put this whole thing into a little bit of a theme and context to see what, to tell you guys what we are currently thinking on the SpecFlow front. So let me see if I can forward here. Seems to be, there we go. Okay, perfect. So, for those of you that don't know SpecFlow, I would highly recommend you to check it out. It's a really cool framework to bring BDD into your .NET projects. It's all available online under specflow.org and entirely for free. And as you will see in a little bit, it works super well now also together with TestProject. But what have we actually been doing in the past, recent months in the SpecFlow team? So we have actually followed one specific theme that we dedicated a lot of time to. And that theme was that we wanted to make BDD more inclusive, in the sense that we wanted to bring in, all three members of a typical agile team, which would be developers, testers, and product owners. And to do so, we have actually just recently launched 2 major product updates. And Karen, this forwarding doesn't really work out currently. Could you forward for me?
Yeah, so I could just let me know. I'll
yeah, can you forward 2 slides from here? Sure. Yeah, let's skip over that. Perfect, thank you. So yeah, so the theme was to make it more inclusive and involve more team members in the BDD process. And what we have done to achieve this recently is we have for the first time, launched our public online Gherkin editor. So Gherkin is the language that BDD is based on, and you can use it to specify your tests in. So this is, a lightweight tool. It's not intended to be like a full-fledged collaborative experience right now. It's more a beginner type tool where you can go in and just play around with Gherkin and then share the resulting test cases that you write up with some team members that have access to, for example, the more sophisticated SpecFlow Visual Studio extension. So we're super proud about that. And the other thing that we have done to make it more inclusive is we have also invested a lot into SpecFlow's Living Doc component. And this is actually really tying everything BDD together. So it reads your feature files from your Git repository. It displays them so you can have discussions between stakeholders and product owners on what the product you're currently building is doing. We have pulled in test results into this so that we can also make it overlay it with the test status and give you basically an overview about how healthy your system currently is, directly reflected on these feature descriptions. And we also looked for a way to bring developers into the mix. And we also introduced a couple of checks that are essentially, analyzing the code for some refactoring tips and tricks that are useful for developers. So we're super proud about these things. And now that BDD and SpecFlow is more involving, we are reshifting our focus to the next big thing, which is the first half of 2021, where we really want to bring SpecFlow to other platforms. And to kick this off, we basically have this webinar right now where we're super proud to announce and introduce this integration with TestProject, where you'll see in a little bit how you can now use these SpecFlow test results and display them from TestProject. But we're not stopping there. We also listened to our community, and I don't know how many of you are SpecFlowers currently, but one of the heavily requested features from our community is actually that we integrate more seamlessly with JetBrains Writer. And I'm happy to say that we are currently approaching this as the next roadmap item that we want to start bringing to our community. And then after that, we will focus on a couple of other things and improvements to other product components. A heavily requested thing for the recent improvements to Living Doc was, for example, that we also bring test result screenshots to it, which we have picked up on and have plans for doing. Now, without further ado, so this was just a little overview about where our head is at SpecFlow, and with that, I'll pass it over to Bas. And don't forget to check us out. There is here a collection of different links. You can find us on most major platforms. We have a YouTube channel where you can consume our videos about how to do things with SpecFlow. We have a live stream once a week, and the typical channels. So Bas, take it away.
Thank you so much for that, Matthias. Let me request the control here. Let's see. Yay, this works, or at least it seems to work for now. Thanks, Karen. Yes, as Matthias already said, and as Karen said in the introduction, over the past couple of months, we've been busy expanding the TestProject Open Sdk family to C#. There was already a C# SDK available for TestProject, but like the Java one, recently this SDK has been completely redesigned to even better integrate with your current Selenium and Appium-based tests and make it even easier to bring the power of the TestProject platform and the TestProject agent to your existing Selenium and Appium-based tests. what I'm going to do today is I'm going to briefly introduce what the SDK does. For those of you who are not yet familiar with it, I'm going to highlight some of the features of the SDK, not all of them. I'm not sure if that was some kind of implicit promise by you, Karen, but I would need a little more. I would need a little more time than the time we have now to talk about and demonstrate all of the features of the SDK. So I'm going to highlight a couple of them, and then it's over to a live demo where I'll show you first how to turn your existing Selenium-based tests into tests that are powered by the TestProject OpenSDK for C#, and what that gives you in terms of cloud reporting and driver management and all kinds of other things that make your life easier as a test automation developer. And as Matthias already said, there's this exciting new collaboration and integration between SpecFlow and the TestProject product family. And that's the second part of the demo for today. And I'm going to show you how to, what you can do with the TestProject OpenSDK with the plugin that we developed for SpecFlow and with SpecFlow itself, and how you can create living documentation from your existing SpecFlow-driven, SpecFlow-based tests on the TestProject platform as well. So that's basically what I'll be doing today. Again, a little bit before we start and before we move into the live demo stuff, let me quickly highlight some of the benefits of using this Open SDK. As I said, this SDK, as with all the SDKs, they are 100% free. They are absolutely completely open source. So while I am one of the main contributors to the project, I am definitely not alone in this. I've been the rest of the team at TestProject have been working really hard together with me to get this live as well. But it is an open source project, and like just half an hour before this webinar start, we got our first contribution from the community, but in the form of a first issue that's been reported. So before I would like to invite you all to please, and not just only check out the SDK itself, but if you think there's something missing, something you'd like to contribute, something that you think can be improved, please feel free to go over to the project GitHub website. I'll share that link in the chat later on, and I'll probably show it somewhere during this live demo as well. And because it is open source and community driven, please feel free to join in and contribute as well, because that's the power of open source, really. As you get, as I said, with this Open SDK, you get automatic and free cloud reporting. As with all the other Open SDKs, you don't need to manage your drivers yourself anymore. That's all being taken care of by the TestProject agent. For those of you not familiar with how TestProject works, how the SDKs work, I'll explain that in a bit. But one of the nice things about using the agent is that you don't have to worry about your Chrome drivers, your Firefox drivers, your Edge drivers, whatever drivers and driver versions anymore, because that's all being taken care of from now on by the TestProject agent. So no more being out of sync or failing tests because of an automatic update from your Chrome. That's all taken care of by the TestProject agent from now on. As I said, this Open SDK has been available for Java and Python for a while, and as of this week, we just released our initial version earlier this week. It's also available for C#, and that's the SDK version that's the subject of this webinar, really. And again, we designed this explicitly with ease of use in mind. So as you'll hopefully see and learn from this demo, from this session, adding the SDK to your project doesn't require you to overhaul or completely rewrite your existing Selenium or Appium-based tests. It requires only a tiny change, really, in your existing tests to benefit from all of the features that the TestProject Open SDK has on offer. And some of those features are, all of the features from the other SDKs. So automatic reporting, a lot of customization options for the reporting. You get automatic driver management, really. As of now, the current version of the SDK supports Selenium. Appium support is still under development. We expect to add that in the next couple of weeks. So for those of you who do mobile automation using Appium, we are working hard on that. So please stay with us for another couple of weeks. It is definitely coming soon. We support the 3 major unit testing frameworks for C#, being MS Test and Unit and XUnit.net. And with support, I mean, we can use the information from these 3 unit testing frameworks to automatically infer the right project and job names and use them to make reporting as easy and as intuitive as it can be on TestProject for all of these 3 unit testing frameworks. And obviously, and Matthias told you about this before, and so did I. We also support SpecFlow, and we'll see that in the second part of the live demo. To get started with any of the Open SDKs, and the C# Open SDK is no exception here, you need to do 2 things, really. You need to take 2 steps, really. First of all is acquiring a developer key from the TestProject website, from app.testproject.io. You need this developer key to be able to authenticate yourself and in your tests with the TestProject agent and by proxy with the TestProject Cloud platform. Your developer key is uniquely tied to your account, and it ensures that the reports that you're sending are only visible to you and the people in your organization with access to that reports. So that's one thing. And getting a developer key is absolutely free as well, but you need it if you want to be able to run your tests and publish your test reports to TestProject Cloud. The second step that you need to take before you can get started turning your existing tests into TestProject Power Tests is downloading and installing the TestProject agent. This is either a process that you run on your local machine or a process that you run inside a Docker container. This agent takes care of communicating your test results to TestProject Cloud, but also of configuring your browser drivers and automatically downloading the latest and the relevant versions and configuring them of the browser drivers that you need. So you never need to do that yourself anymore if you use the TestProject agent, because it's being taken care of you by the agent. So, and what the SDK does is it communicates with the TestProject agent, and the TestProject agent takes care of starting the driver sessions, configuring the drivers, and publishing all of the test reports to TestProject Cloud for you. So now that you obtained your developer key and installed and started your TestProject agent, the easiest way to configure them both is by configuring them in environment variables. That's not the only way to do it, but it is the way I've done it for this demo. So if you say, well, where is your developer token, and how does your code know where the agent is running? That's because I configured them in environment variables. TP dev token for my developer token and TP agent URL for the agent address. You can specify both of them in your code as well, but that's not absolutely necessary. And I think doing this via environment variables is just a little easier. But there are multiple options if you want to do it in a different way, really. So that's so far for the slides. Let's go to the live demo part of this. Karen, can you quickly confirm that you can see my screen now with the TestProject website on it?
Yes, confirmed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So before I dive into the code and the live demo, I promised you to. So let's use the new URL and paste that in the chat really quickly for all of you to explore. If you want to know more about what it is that the Open SDK can do, all of its features, the documentation, please have a look at the GitHub website, and you have a complete documentation on all of the features of the SDKs there. As I said, there's simply not enough time in this webinar to cover everything that the SDK can do. But if you want a complete overview, please feel free to browse through the documentation and have a look for yourself. And also, if you have a change request or an issue, or you want to contribute a pull request, this is the place to be, really. Let's take a look at some code. This is my Visual Studio installation. What I've prepared for you here currently is a single class of with a single class containing 2 Selenium-based tests. These are regular vanilla Selenium-based tests. There's no test project stuff going on here yet, apart from the fact that there's test project in the namespace, but that's it, really. This is just vanilla Selenium. There are 2 tests in there. One that navigates to the test project demo application, logs in using John Smith and the super secret password 12345, and then checks that a greeting message is displayed. That's a test that I expect to pass. And the second one, it also logs in and then checks for an element that does not exist. So I specify the CSS selector that points to an element that does not exist. It speaks for itself that I expect this second test to fail. But if you are testers like myself, you probably don't believe me. You want to see that for yourself. So let's quickly run those tests and see what happens. Again, this is no test project. There's no test project stuff in here yet. So it is a little slow at the moment. So it says that the build succeeded, but there is no test running yet. And why is there no test running yet? Oh, come on. Huh. Always during the live demos, let me try to turn it off and on again. There we go. There we are again. Let's wait until it has detected the tests again. I have no idea why it is so slow right now. But here we are again. That's better. So here is my first test. It logs in. That one passes. And the second one, again, I expect to fail because it's going to look for an element that simply doesn't exist. So and indeed it says, well, no such element exception. I couldn't find the element with that locator that you specified. So we have a test run with one passing test and one failing test. Currently, this is all the reporting that I get. Really, that's the reporting. The unit testing framework that I'm using is NUnit here. But MSTest or xunit.net would have given me the exact same thing, just green check marks or red crosses in my IDE or in my on my command line output that says, well, these tests passed and these one failed. Let's now add TestProject to the mix. So we've made it speaks for itself probably, but we've made the TestProject SDK available as a NuGet package. So if you look for TestProject at Open Sdk on NuGet, and the first result that you see is the TestProject Open Sdk version 65.0. Let's add that to our project. Install the package and add it to a project. There we go. Now we've successfully added the SDK to our project, but we aren't using it yet. So instead of, the only thing I'm going to change here is instead of using a Chrome driver directly from the Selenium binding, so from the Selenium library, I'm saying, well, don't use this one. Use the one from the TestProject SDK library. Again, the only thing I did is, well, try use a Chrome driver instance from the TestProject SDK instead of one from Selenium itself. Build my project again. And now there's one thing I forgot, and that would have, I should have started my test project agent, because that helps. Because the driver from the TestProject SDK is going to communicate with the TestProject agent, and then it helps if the agent is actually running. So let's wait a couple of seconds for that to completely start up and finish its startup sequence. Wait until it says that the Appium stuff is loaded there as well. There we go. Now I know that it's running. And then run the tests again. Here we go. It's going to run both the tests again. That's one. And there's number two. And the first test passed and the second one failed again. But since we've now used a driver from the TestProject SDK. And as I said that beforehand, I configured my development token in the correct environment variable and set up my agent and told the SDK where to find the agent. I can now go to the reports on the TestProject platform, go to examples, and I have a brand new entry here from 5:01 p.m. from just 1 minute ago. At least it's 5:01 p.m. here, Central European time. I know this is a global audience, but believe me, that's the current time here right now. And what I have here, so it's taking a bit of time to load. There we go. Is a report with a summary of everything that happened during this latest test execution, this latest test run. So I have in my examples project, I have a job that's also called examples. I have a job report that says, well, in this, when this job was executed, when this test run was executed, 2 tests were executed. The test names are automatically inferred by the SDK itself. Again, it's derived this from the test method name, and the job name is equal to the name of the test class. The project name is equal to the final segment of the namespace that the class containing the test methods is in. If you want, that's the logic that the SDK uses to determine what project name, what job name, and what test name to use. So I've added these 2 methods here. Add this, the one that checks that the greeting message is displayed, that one passed, and one that failed, that says, well, with the incorrect locale, it should be reported as an error, which it actually did. And not only is it reporting the tests together with the test results, it also, for the tests, it in great detail, it shows all the Selenium driver commands that were executed during this specific test. So during this test that passed, it navigated to a URL, it found the element to type the username in, and it typed the username, and so on, all the way to the check that the greetings was displayed. The greetings element was displayed. At the same for the second one, that was mostly the same, except for the final step, where after the login click, it was going to check that the element didn't exist. And because this WebDriver command failed, because the locator that is specified just didn't exist in the HTML of the application, it automatically reported this step in our test as failed, because the WebDriver command failed. That in turn marks the test as failed, and that in turn marks this job execution as failed. And if I click on this step, I get more detailed description about what it is exactly that went wrong. So this is the element where the problem was. This is the actual message that's being returned by the WebDriver, indicating the problem. It says no such element. I could not find that. That was the same error message that you saw in the IDE earlier. And it automatically produced a screenshot of the current state of our browser. And all of this happened automatically. So deriving the error message, reporting the failed step, attaching a screenshot, publishing it on TestProject, that all happened without me having to change anything in my existing test code. So this is what you get pretty much, as I hopefully showed you, pretty much out of the box with the TestProject C# OpenSDK. So again, I have no time to highlight all of the features of the SDK in this webinar, but there are a couple that I want to highlight. The first one is, if you look closer, you see that the actual value of the password, which in this case is not so secret because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's been redacted. So it's been replaced by these 3 asterisks. We automatically detect if you're typing something into a sensitive field, so a password field or any other type of secured element. And if that's the case, we don't publish the actual password in your report or the actual other type of sensitive data, but we redact it and we replace it by these 3 asterisks. If you want to disable that, you can do that by saying, I want to disable the redaction. Also, as I showed you, we automatically derived the project and the job names from the class name and the final part of the namespace. And so this is going to be the project name and this is going to be the job name. If you want to customize that, you can pass the values that you want to webinar demo project. And you can pass those values in the constructor of your driver object. Let's compile that one again. There we go. Run these tests once more. So it takes a, yeah, there we go. And by the way, if you think, whoa, execution is a little slow, I deliberately pause for half a second between each individual driver command, just not to let the application flash by too quickly so you have no idea what's actually happening. That's here in the code. I just do a hard sleep of 500 milliseconds before each step. So in reality, the execution would be a lot faster. Let's refresh this page to have a look at the new reports, but now I'm thinking it's not going to be in here because there is a new project called Webinar Demo Project, which is not coincidentally the exact name that I specified, with the job name, with a single run, with my 2 test names again. So that hasn't changed. The test names haven't changed. If you want to customize the test names, there's an option for that as well. But what I've done is I've customized the project name. I've customized the job name. And because I've disabled the redaction, you can now actually see the actual value that we typed into that password field. We don't automatically, because we explicitly disabled that, the SDK will not automatically replace those sensitive values with the asterisk anymore. So that's it for the Open SDK itself. But as we promised, there's also this exciting new feature of the integration with and the support for SpecFlow. Are there any questions that cannot wait until the end right now, Karen, before I move on to this second part of the live demo?
No, go ahead. We can address everything at the end.
Cool.
Thank you.
So again, I have my I have another demo project here with a SpecFlow feature file with a scenario outline where I basically go through the same steps in the TestProject demo application, but I do this for 3 different users. So I have users Alex, Bernard, and Claire. They all use the same username, but Bernard accidentally uses the wrong password. So what I'm expecting here is that this scenario is going to be run 3 times. For those of you not familiar with SpecFlow, scenario outline is a template for a scenario. The examples give me actual values for each iteration of the scenario. This is going to running this scenario outline is going to result in 3 scenarios being run. 1 for the first example, so the first row in my examples table, 1 for the second row, 1 for the third row, really. So if I, and you can see this is all powered by SpecFlow and NUnit under the hood as well. And so if this again is just, and what I'm showing you right now is just SpecFlow and Selenium. It's a little quicker, and I have no idea why it's not running anything right now, because it did that earlier on. But at least it started. It ran the tests, at least. I'm not sure why it doesn't show the results in my Test Explorer. Let's quickly restart it again. Of course, this doesn't happen until the actual webinar. Here we go again. Let's see what happens one more time. It is not going to play nice. I am going to assume that this is just a problem in my IDE at the moment. As you can see, at least it starts the browser, so there is absolutely code that is executed here. This is the code that is being executed. Again, this is Selenium code, but this time the actual execution is wrapped into my SpecFlow step definitions, and that's the code that implements the steps in my scenarios. Again, this is just Selenium and SpecFlow, so there is no test project involvement yet, but no, I don't want that. Let's add the TestProject OpenSDK to this project as well. And if I want to report my my SpecFlow test results or my update my living documentation online, I not only need to add the SDK itself to the project, but also and we developed a SpecFlow plugin for the Open SDK, and that additional plugin takes care of hooking into SpecFlow and detecting that SpecFlow is running, and after the execution of each individual step in a SpecFlow scenario, and after execution of SpecFlow scenarios, reporting the right information to TestProject. So for those of you who want to make full use of the integration of TestProject with SpecFlow, and you'll need to add both the SDK itself, which ensures that you have Selenium and Appium drivers that can communicate with TestProject, as well as the SpecFlow plugin that takes care of hooking into SpecFlow, detecting what is happening, and deriving the right information from your feature files and from your scenarios, and reporting that as living documentation to TestProject Cloud. So, whoops, now that I've added the necessary NuGet packages to my project, I need to do the same thing again as I did in the previous demo, is that instead of using a driver from Selenium itself, I want to use the same driver provided by the TestProject SDK. Here we go again. Let's just clean it and build it again to see if that helps. Playing nicely with how it reports the stuff in my IDE. Here we go. Let's run it again. This looks better. I see the spinner again. That's what I wanted to see. Yeah, and I see green check marks now, which is what I like to see. There we go. So I've executed this SpecFlow feature again now. Underneath the SpecFlow step definitions is still that Selenium code powered by the TestProject SDK. You see that three different scenario outlines, three different examples have been executed. One for Alex, who successfully tried to log in. One for Bernard, who accidentally used the wrong password, and he still expected to gain access to the secure part of the application. Well, that's not going to fly with us, Bernard, if you use the wrong password. And then again, Claire, who did use the right username and password, and she successfully gained access to the secure part of the TestProject application again. So as we promised, using the TestProject SDK and the SpecFlow plugin, it automatically produces, or we promised that it would actually automatically produce living documentation. So living a live and up-to-date insight or documentation into is my application actually behaving like we specified upfront in our 3Amigo session, in our BDD process, how we specified it into our scenarios. So let's have a look here. Again, a run from 5:18 p.m. And if we click on that, what we see here is that we have three tests. So each example or each scenario is translated into a test on TestProject Cloud. They are all called user tries to log in to the TestProject demo application. Normally, the test name would be equal to the scenario name in our feature files. But with scenario outlines, they all have the same name. So what we do here is we append the value of the first column in our example, which also according to the SpecFlow official documentation is meant to give a unique identifier for your example. And in this case, it's also the first name that we use, but we append that to the specific test name. So here it's Alex, Bernard is the one that failed, and the example with Claire, again, passed. And so we know uniquely that it's this specific example in our scenario outline that failed or that passed. And what you see in detail for each of these scenarios is it reports if the individual steps that make up our scenario, that make up our living documentation, really passed or failed. So you get a very detailed insight into which scenarios, which feature files are still okay when I do my test run, and which of these and which steps in which scenarios cause some problems. And that is reflected in the reports that you see here on TestProject Cloud, because we can see exactly which one of the scenarios or even of the scenario examples that we executed passed and which one failed and in which step it failed. As you might notice, we don't report any driver or driver command specific information anymore. When we detect that SpecFlow is being used and that you use the SpecFlow plugin and that you're running your Selenium and Appium code as part of a SpecFlow scenario, SpecFlow feature, we automatically disable the automatic test reporting, and B, the automatic reporting of driver commands. Why? Because in this respect, if we want to create living documentation, it's noise, really. If you want to run regular Selenium tests, it is incredibly, it's important information. But if I want to create living documentation, all I'm really interested in is what does this documentation look like and which steps and which scenarios passed or failed. And we choose not to display not to add the details or the information up to the driver command level here. This gives you a pretty detailed and nicely bundled overview of which features are passing, which ones are failing, and which part of my specifications is giving me troubles right now, all for free, without having to do anything else other than installing the SDK, the SpecFlow plugin, and making sure that your drivers are coming from the TestProject platform, from the TestProject SDK. I think that's about it for what I had to show in this demo. I'm going to give it back to you, Karen, right now to see if there are any questions that we might want to address or anything that I've missed.
Thank you very much, Bas, for this great live demo. And we have some questions. So do you have access to the Q&A? Do you want to start browsing through them?
Well, we can just start from the top. So let's start with the one from Zach. If that's also the one you see on the on the top of the list.
That's what I see as well.
What is a suggested best practice for how often to instantiate a driver in a suite of tests? I would think only one time, but XUnit, for example, doesn't have any hook for global setup. Good question. Not specifically related to the SDK, but that's okay. I'm going to just give you my personal opinion. I've always learned and practiced and taught others as well, even earlier today, because I was teaching a Selenium class earlier today, about creating a new driver instance for each individual test. I think that's a good practice. Why? Because I want each of my tests to start with a clean slate. I don't want any residual cookies or hanging sessions or cached information or local storage or anything bleeding from one test into the next. And yes, this gives you a little bit of overhead sometimes in terms of I have to create another browser session, or I have to log in again, for example, and then go through some other screens again. But it is, and that's far outweighed by the benefits of not having your tests depend on one another. So I like to keep my test as atomic and as independent as possible. So that's why I typically practice, well, use a new browser session, new driver session for each individual test. With regards to the reporting on the on TestProject, it also makes your makes it the report in your reporting. It makes much clear which steps belongs to which test, because it will start the TestProject SDK will start a new test automatically for each new driver session, really. So I would say, well, I think, but again, it's personal, and but this is what I've been seeing and what I've been teaching is I think it's a good idea to start a new session for each test, really. But I'm judging from your comment that goes a little against what it is that you're trying to do, and there might be good reasons for that. But this is just my view on things, really. So then, can you help me choose between Visual Studio 2019 and Visual Studio Code? No. Or well, actually, it's addressed to you, Karen. But if you'd ask me, it's going to be a no, because yeah, that's a personal thing, really. So, and I'm just now seeing that I'm answering the questions last in, first out. So that's not it. So should we? Oh no, I'm mistaken here. While we make a website, I don't know how to answer that question at the moment, unfortunately. So here, while we make a website, we write doc type HTML. So which tag to use while making an app? I am not a mobile app developer, so I am not in the position to answer that question right now. I'm sorry. Srijit, and I'm hoping I'm not butchering your name too much. Is TestProject support Power Apps test automation? Do you know what Power Apps are, Karen? And if you support it, because I don't know.
Yeah, so I actually wasn't sure about what are Power Apps as well. So maybe Srijit can elaborate more on that, and we can go back to that.
I address it later, or you can always ask it on the TestProject forum. And
yep, exactly.
Yeah, the customer support team from TestProject, they pretty much work 24/7 or so, I'm told.
Yeah,
so,
pretty much.
Yeah. Heyman said, will it support parallel execution? That is on the roadmap. So, and that's something we plan to add soon. As of now, not yet, but it is definitely something that's been requested a lot by the users. So that is definitely going to be one of the things that we're going to look into soon. So yes, please stay tuned for that. It is. Can we use this for Winforms project testing? No, not yet, at least. I think this is related to using the WinApp driver. So the TestProject SDKs do not yet support using a WinApp driver. So we can't do, and I'm assuming, and I'm not exactly sure what Winforms applications are, but from the name, I'm assuming it's a Windows desktop application, which you automate using the WinApp driver, and that's not yet supported by the SDKs. If it's something that you think should be added, by all means, submit a feature request, and we'll have a talk. We'll have a good discussion and talk about it to see if we can support that, and if so, when. Okay, some of the questions are duplicates, I think. Mohammed asks, so after creating an account at TestProject and using the Open SDK to submit test data results to TestProject, what could be the limitation here? The size of my account at TestProject, the number of allowed projects, the features available at TestProject? Karen, this one's for you.
Yeah, thanks. So there really is no limitation. As you all know, TestProject is a Tricentis portfolio company, the same as SpecFlow, by the way, and therefore we are a completely free solution without any limitations, enabling you to use the platform at no cost and enjoying it and giving back to the open source community.
Awesome. I think that answers the question perfectly. So Santosh asked, to build SpecFlow, do we need to add a NuGet package SpecFlow.tools.ms-builder generation Yes. As of SpecFlow 3 and maybe 3. something, you need that package anyway. That's completely separate from using the TestProject Open SDK, but that's the SpecFlow helper package that auto-generates the code behind the actual feature file. So that's not the step definition code. You still need to generate and implement that yourself. But the glue code that translates the text in the feature files to the step definitions is generated by the code that's in this package. So I have a getting started with SpecFlow article on the TestProject blog, and that also lists this package as a required package if you want to use SpecFlow in your .NET based projects. So that's a required package, definitely.
Yeah, I'll also share a link to that blog as well. By the way, maybe before continuing to answer questions, another thing while we're on SpecFlow and living documentation and all that good stuff, how about you show everyone that you can export all the reports into PDF as well. So if you want to send them over and have it documented, then you've got that.
That's absolutely true. So for each report that you get on TestProject Cloud, you can export the PDF. It's automatically downloaded onto your machine. So this creates your living documentation. So this is the summary where we again have our scenario, our examples that have been executed with the result for each of the scenarios and the report details that give a step-by-step description of what happened for each individual scenario in this case, or for a regular Selenium test that we saw in the first part of the live demo with each step in our Selenium-based test. So here we have the scenario with Bernard, where we had one failed step, and you even see that there was this assertion error that was thrown by the underlying unit testing framework because it checked for an element that wasn't there because Bernard used the wrong password to try and log in. And for each past execution, it reports the, as of now, it reports the step execution. Actually, that is going to change in an upcoming release, but for now, it reports the step execution time in case of a successfully completed step in a SpecFlow scenario.
Maybe another interesting thing I know people are asking about is about where to set up the developer key.
Where to set up the developer key. So you get it from the integrations tab. So you can generate one here. And I can set it up either in my, and again, this is Windows specific. I have it stored here in that TP dev token environment variable that I used. Or alternatively, I could, let me go back to my code, specify it in the constructor of my token. So your token goes here. So if you can also specify it in your code if you don't want to or can't store it in an environment variable.
Perfect. Thanks.
You are welcome. And now I want to go back to the Q&A. There we go. If there are a good Nishu, you ask if there are a good number of test cases executed. User cannot download the full report. My regression test is usually 100 test cases and we run it once. Every time I have to execute a small bunch of test cases to download the report. Is there something in the pipeline so the big size reports can be downloaded from TestProject? Are you aware of that, Karen? I am not, to be honest.
Well, let me go through that question. The good number of test cases executed. Well, no, that should not be an issue. But Nishu, I hope I'm saying your name right. Then feel free to reach out directly to our support team, and we will have a look into your specific use case. So either reach out on the forum or the built-in chat within the platform, or directly at support@testproject.io. So as Bas said, we really are pretty much 24/7 here for you all. So definitely share that with us, and we'll take care of and see what happened there.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you. So Ali asked, is Java more difficult from C#? That's a deep question and a very opinionated, it's a very subjective question. In general, I don't know. With regards to how to use the TestProject Open SDK for Java or for C#, absolutely not. They are apart from the SpecFlow support, because SpecFlow is specific to .NET and to C#, using the Java, the TestProject Java Open SDK is adding that to your Java-based Selenium and Appium test is just as straightforward as what you've just seen in the live demo for C#. It is really a matter of adding a package to your project, either through Maven or via Gradle. And then instead of using the standard Selenium, Chrome driver, or Firefox driver, or whichever driver you're using, use the one from the TestProject SDK and you should be good to go. Sometimes my question list scrolls all the way to the top. Let's see where we were. Nishu, you also ask, as you said, we can use MS Test as well with TestProject SDK. I tried that many times, but it does not work. MS Test uses the .NET framework, whereas TestProject SDK uses .NET Core. The TestProject SDK does not use .NET Core, it uses .NET Standard. Can you tell me how to use MS Test using the TestProject SDK? I am a firm believer of showing rather than telling. Yep, save those and go to the SDK itself. What you actually see here is the, come on, is the SDK itself. I have here in the examples, which by the way can also be found on GitHub, on the GitHub side. So in this, oh, not the SpecFlow examples, in the tests, in the examples, frameworks, MS Test. So we have two MS Test based tests here. If I go to my tests examples, so these are the examples for the MS Test framework. Let's just use the explicit report test here. There we go. So that this too, because all of the examples use the example at the test project example website as well. So this is a test, the explicit report test, just to show you. MS Test, that's this one. So this definitely uses MS Test and the TestProject SDK to report examples. My MS Test example from just right now, almost quarter to 6 CET, and it reported my test exactly as I expected. So it can be done. I hate to say it, but it works on my machine. Also, all of the flow tests and the example tests that we use in our own CI to build our own project, our own product, they are all used run on GitLab. Not even on Windows machines, but on Linux containers, and they all use MS Test as well. So there is definitely something that can be done to make this work with MS Test, even on non-Windows machines.
Yeah, Bas, maybe it's important to emphasize that there are two different SDKs there. So just the user who asked that, just to make sure that you're using the Open SDK and not all.
That is probably a very good addition, Mark. Thank you for jumping in. There is a, I'm not sure if we can call it the old SDK, but the legacy, let's call it the legacy C# SDK. I'm not sure if that one was built on .NET Core. That could be, but the new Open SDK, which is the SDK that we're talking about or showing here right now, is built on .NET Standard. So, and as you just seen, it definitely supports MS Test as well. But thanks for jumping in, Mark. I appreciate that. Can you share the example code which was demonstrated in this session? I am happy to upload that to GitHub. It's not on GitHub yet, but I'm happy to do that and share that with all of you. I'll let Karen know where I did that. I'm going to do that right after this session ends. And Karen can, if you're okay with that, Karen, you can share that link with everybody in the email that goes with the recording of the session.
Yes, of course. That will be great.
Excellent. Patrick asked, does a login into TestProject on the same machine have the same effect as starting the test agent from the command prompt? No, they are two separate things. One is the process that's running on your local machine that sends commands and reports to TestProject Cloud, but logging into TestProject Cloud does not start your local test agent. So they are two separate actions. They are part of the same process, but there are two separate steps, really. Nishu, once again, thanks. I checked this code snippet uses the SDK, but the code is usual Selenium code. It must be using environment variable setup to be useful. Do you have some document for that, how to set up environment variables and execute basic code using the test project? For the Open SDK, we definitely do have that. I think, yeah, it was just this morning that we published and how to get started with the TestProject C# Open SDK. And that contains information about how to get started, where to get your developer token, where to get your test project agent, and how to configure those environment variables as well. So please have a look at those, Nishu, and you should be able to get all the information that you're looking for from there, really. GS, you ask how to create living doc. Matthias, maybe this is a good one, a question for you, because this seems to be more related to SpecFlow in general than related to the Open SDK.
Sure, glad to take it, Bas. So I might just start to explain the idea of living doc real quick. So the idea of living doc is basically that you leverage the concept of BDD, which gives you test cases that you can read in plain English through this Gherkin syntax, and then exposes that structure of test cases to different stakeholders. So the exposure of it and then the fact that you can update it is basically what makes it living. So so if you put the BDD idea and combine it with the idea of sharing that information publicly and re-update it once a change occurs, that's what makes it living doc. Especially if you then overlay this Gherkin structure with test results, you actually get an up-to-date information about not only what your application does functionally, but also how it currently works, how it currently works. So it gives you that real-time information. And that's what you get with this integration with TestProject, because you have this Gherkin structure and you have this real-time information through your test runs on how the application is behaving. If you need more information, you can go to our blog. We talk a lot about the idea of living doc and how it works. And there is more information for you to be found there.
And this is the SpecFlow blog, not the test project blog. I think you're referring to Matthias, right?
Yes, thanks for clarifying, Bas. That's exactly right.
It is easy to get confused because with all of these great resources of information out there. But I think this is something I see discussed a lot on the SpecFlow blog, which is another. It's, by the way, it's a great source of information too. It's hard to keep up with all the material that you put out there because it comes so fast, really.
Yeah, we try our best.
Yeah, well, you're at least if you'd ask me, you're doing pretty well. Gopinath, you ask, is it possible to have an example index instead of first name appended to the test name? I think that refers again to this example that I just showed you. Well, let's have a look. Test case ID. Oops. TC001, TC002, and TC003, or whatever you want to call them. Let's compile that and run them once again. So this is not a variable that's being used in the actual scenario anymore. It's just a test case ID. Oh, come on. It is not playing nice anymore. Provided token for development session is invalid. Yes, of course it is, because I specified something entirely invalid here. So that's my fault. I specified a token which did not make any sense at all, and it was expected to fail. Of course, this is much better.
Bas, don't
Yes.
forget to change your token after the webinar.
I am not going to, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Thanks, Mark. So if I go to the reports again, I have a new test run. And as you can see here now, instead of Alex, Bernard, or Claire, it has the, it really takes the value of the first column in your example table, which is, again, also in line with the official SpecFlow documentation. It's meant to, it can contain a an actual value to be used in your examples, but it's also meant to contain a unique identifier for your examples. So, and that's why we use the value of that column and append that one to an individual example in our scenario outline to uniquely identify each of the individual examples, really. So there you go. How many feature files are supported? Asks Sanjay. As many as you like, really. So I don't think there is any limit to the number of feature files that is being used, because in the end they are simply translated to jobs and tests on the TestProject platform. So, and as there's, as Karen already said earlier, there is really no limit to the amount of projects and jobs and tests that you can report to TestProject. There shouldn't be a limit to the number of feature files that's being supported either. Do we have the option to filter reports by SpecFlow tags? I do not know that. So at the moment, is there, and that's probably something that Karen or maybe Mark can better answer, is there a way to filter reports on TestProject Cloud at all?
Well, you have the search section. You can see it over
here,
there.
Here on the top left.
We do plan on incorporating tags very soon. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up.
Okay. How the runner is used as in the implementation. I did not see any runner object in the test cases. I think this again, but Mark, please jump in if I'm saying something incorrect and or plain stupid right now. The runner is an interface that you had to implement in the legacy C# TestProject SDK. In the new Open Sdk, your unit testing framework is the runner. So the only thing you need to do is obtain a driver object from the TestProject agent using the SDK, and that's it really. So my runner and my test is simply my unit testing framework, and because it has a good integration with Visual Studio, I'm simply able to run my tests from the Test Explorer in Visual Studio, because NUnit or MS Test or xunit.net provides that integration with Visual Studio. But there is no specific runner required anymore when you use the Open SDK.
Yeah, Bas, this is correct for the Open SDK.
Thank you for confirming that and for not saying I said something stupid. But when are we, Tofik, you asked, or Tofik Maridia, you asked, when are we expecting to get driver support for Android and iOS? In the next couple of weeks. So we are currently developing that. Then it has to go through our own testing process first. And as soon as that is ready, and we expect that in the next couple of weeks, we will release that to the public in a new version of the package.
Yeah, but it's me again. Maybe it's also important to emphasize that in a couple of weeks, we're also going to support of uploading those DLL and artifacts to TestProject platform for those who want to utilize
yes.
Deployment.
So yeah, this is just one of the upcoming features. Again, we're working hard on a wide range of features. But the one that you mentioned, Mark, is definitely a major one as well. So thank you for adding that to the answer. How much time do you have left, Karen?
We have a couple more minutes. I see a few last questions here, so I guess we can complete those and summarize.
Okay. Yes. Can we use it for automating Electron apps? I am not too familiar with Electron apps, to be honest. So
yeah, Electron, it's some kind of wrapper for desktop application for Angular and etc. So you can write JavaScript inside of it. So basically it will like some kind of native, let's call it native WinForm, or not WinForm, but native Windows application. So no, currently it's not supported yet.
And that's something that you use with the WinApp driver, or?
Yeah, it's probably can be tackled with the WinApp driver.
Okay, I was not familiar with Electron, so thanks for jumping in. What dev token do we use for pipeline tests like Jenkins? It depends on what you want, which one you want to use. Probably you want to use a specific one that's tied to that's tied to a specific and maybe automation user in your organization on TestProject. But it's just another dev token, really. It's no different than the dev. Of course, it's a different dev token, but there's no difference between the dev token that I'm using on my machine and a dev token that you use in your pipeline.
Yeah, it's just to emphasize on that, Bas, that is completely correct while you're using it like when you're working locally. But if someone asking it in terms of Dockers, it's like using running the CI pipeline as part of the CI process, and using Dockers, they can probably use API keys as well. So for like spinning Dockers containers and registering the agent on the fly, you can create in the integration section, you can create an API token that will be used to register the agent automatically, and then authenticate it with TestProject, and then just using the developer token that, as Bas mentioned, for running the code.
Yes. So that's here, right, in this section of the create an API key. And so if you go to integrations on the TestProject, instead of SDK, where you get your developer token, you go to the API section, and there you can get your API key. I guess it's late to show a demo how the data source comes into play on this. It is a little late for that, to be honest. You have to be live coding a data-driven test into this. But again, because we support all the major C# unit testing frameworks, creating a data-driven test and report the results of each individual iteration should not be a problem. How to execute test cases on multiple browsers. In this session, we only used Chrome driver. That is absolutely true, an issue. But and it's probably a good idea to show this in the documentation here. If you go to the documentation, you can have a look at all the different drivers that we support right now. And again, the Android and iOS drivers are coming soon. But as of now, we support Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, and also the remote web driver, which you can use to create a remote WebDriver object with all the properties that you want. And we also support a generic driver, which is a driver that you can use to report the results of your non-UI tests. So if you don't use Selenium or Appium, if you write API tests, for example, maybe even unit tests, and you still want to report the results of those tests and any intermediate steps to TestProject, then you can use a generic driver to report steps and tests manually, because there are no driver commands or anything. But with that generic driver, you can still report information that you want to send to TestProject Cloud yourself by using that generic driver. So you're not even limited to Selenium and Appium in that. Do you plan to have any integration with Solenoid? Not at the moment. As far as I can think, we for mobile we build on top of Appium because it is so close to Selenium, because it also uses the WebDriver protocol. Has this been discussed at all within TestProject, the use of Solenoid? Mark?
No, we're basically using best of breed currently, Appium, as you mentioned, and Selenium.
Yeah. Okay. Can you show us an example of the PDF report that we could export from TestProject? I think we did that earlier. And how often does the editor will be updated to match the updates that are being adopted at Selenium drivers and new updates to Chrome, Firefox, etc.? That's not actually the responsibility of the SDK, because the SDK builds on top of Selenium or Appium, but the Chrome drivers and the Chrome versions, they are all managed by the agent. And the TestProject agent automatically detects your current version of the browser that you're using, so Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Edge, Opera, and so on. And it will automatically download and configure the right corresponding Chrome driver, Gecko driver, Edge driver, and so on for you. So you don't have that all comes out of the box with the use of the TestProject agent. So you don't need to worry about that anymore. And that a new release of Chrome does not have, unless something really fundamentally changes and the Selenium or WebDriver implementation changes, which is far less often, a new release of Chrome or Firefox or any other type of driver has no impact on, little to no impact on the implementation of the Open Sdk. So those are two separate things. And new Chrome will automatically be supported by the agent, because it simply sees, well, you used to have Chrome driver 87, and I have installed the Chrome or you have Chrome 87, and I previously installed Chrome driver for Chrome 87, but I now see when you start the agent that Chrome automatically updated itself to version 88, which with me it did just earlier this week. Then it's automatically going to download the Chrome and configure the Chrome driver that corresponds to Chrome version 88. And it does the same for all other browsers that are supported by TestProject. And I think that is the last one of the questions, Karen.
Yeah, indeed, you answered a lot of great questions, and maybe
they were great questions indeed.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone sharing those great questions. I'd like to maybe just go ahead and summarize, then maybe if you can give me the access to go ahead and share my screen.
Please do.
Okay. Hope you can see it. This big question mark basically summarizes our Q&A time and all the great questions everyone asked. And I would like to take this moment to thank Bas and Matthias, both of you, for this wonderful webinar and great presentation and live demo. And also thank you everyone for joining. And here are some contact info to reach out to Bas. So if you'd like to share something about that, Bas, go ahead.
No, this is it. Well, yeah, you know how it works: email and websites and LinkedIn. I tend to think I'm pretty responsive on both email and LinkedIn. So if there's anything specifically to the Open SDK or to the work that we're doing together, or any article that we've written together, please get in touch.
Yep, and sharing again all the contact info for SpecFlow again. So Matthias, feel free to add something if you would like to before we summarize.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Karen, and thanks to all of you. If you have some questions about SpecFlow, if you want to just reach us, feel free to go to our website, specflow.org. Check out our YouTube channel with, there's a lot of great content up there. If you have specific technical questions, you can reach us on our support forum and interact with other users. So we're happy to see you leveraging SpecFlow and test project together. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you. And I guess a couple last things. Just again, thank you very much everyone for attending, and thank you Bas and Matthias for this great session. And if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and sign up for your free test project account over at testproject.io. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out anytime at the support email, our forum, or at the built-in chat we have within the platform. The team is always there to help you. As for our fun BDD on Cloud challenge, it is still open for another 24 hours. So go ahead and share your posts on LinkedIn, and one of you will get a chance to win some cool test project swag. So simply share about any challenges you experience with C# or BDD and how you overcome them. I assume this webinar was a great help for that. So definitely feel free to share. And just don't forget to tag us, Test Project, and use the hashtag BDD on Cloud so we find you. And in just a couple of hours, as promised, you will all receive a full recording of this webinar, the presentation slides, all the relevant links we discussed here today, and of course, as tradition, a fun certificate of attendance to all those who attended. And definitely keep on following us to stay up to date with all of our exciting releases coming up, and many more events like this one. So thank you very much, everyone, and see you next time, and stay safe. Thank you, Bas. Thank you, Matthias.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Also to you, Matthias, for co-hosting this with me, and for Karen for doing a wonderful job once again of organizing this all. It was great. And thanks, of course, to all the attendants for taking some time out of your day, be it your morning, your afternoon, or your evening, to be in this webinar with us.
Absolutely. Also, thank you from my end to you, Bas, and to you, Karen, and to all of you who attended. It was a pleasure. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Have a great rest of your day, nights, wherever you are. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.